We have about 6 people. I am Nicole Petrandria Huff for CocoHuff.com. Tonight we are talking about turkey, but before we do that, let me say this is our 10th week doing the cooking tutorials, and I'm just very happy that you've all been here with me all these weeks. This feels to me like the big one, and so we're going to have this on Facebook. I'll be posting some information after the fact about what we did and try to make this all easier for you if anyone is making their turkey this Thanksgiving. So anyway, Nicole Petrandria Huff for Coco Huff. Like I said, I've been a kitchen designer in the New York and New Jersey area for 18 years, and now I'm incorporating that with my love of food and sharing and trying to make your time in the kitchen as wonderful and delicious and stress-free as possible. So I hope this is a stress-free night. There is a lot going on in here. So I used to be able to see who was here. Now I can only see your comments. I don't know what changed. But give me your comments. Give me your questions. Anything you want to discuss. That's why I'm here. Anything about the turkey, about Thanksgiving, about any part of this process, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. And if I don't know, I will find out later. So I have 4 cameras going tonight. I have 2 at my island and 2 at the stove because we have a lot of back and forth. It's feeling overwhelming to me, maybe a little bit, but I'm doing 3 turkeys right now so that I can show you the beginning, the middle, and the end of this process. So everything I'm doing tonight, you will do over several days, and hopefully that will feel a lot easier. So let me just tell you what we're doing. We are going to talk about defrosting the turkey, making a brine, how to do that, why we do that, what the results of that are when you do. Let's see. Once we do that, we're going to brine 1 turkey, and then we have another one that we'll pull out of the brine and show what to do next. So how to dry it, what it should look like, how to season it more, and get it ready for the oven. And then, I have notes tonight. I don't usually have notes. Tonight I have notes. There's a lot happening. So that's going to involve putting some extra butter and herbs on the turkey, and getting it prepared, like trussing it and arranging the wings and everything the way we did that first week with the chicken. There's a lot of similarity there. And then we have a finished turkey that we'll look at how to carve it and make a gravy. It's a tall order. We usually spend about an hour. Maybe it will be an hour, maybe a little more. I'm not sure. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing first, we're going to make a brine. So the reason we do this is to add flavor to the turkey, to add moisture to it, particularly the turkey breast, which can be notoriously dry. And like I said, it infuses it with flavor, and really it tenderizes it a lot, actually. Like the salt with any meat changes the chemical composition of the meat. So if you salt a steak and you're dry aging it, or even just salting it for a couple days before a holiday, it pulls the juices out, which you would think would make it drier, but it actually changes the chemical composition. It makes meat more tender. So that's why we do that, and I'll show you how we do that, and we'll put the turkey in. So let's get started. So, all right, we have just a pan here on the stove, and we'll put all of our brine ingredients in it. I have one here that's already cooling, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But basically, let me come back to myself for a second. Basically, any brine, so you can do this with pork chops. Pork chops are also notoriously dry sometimes, so this is a good way. Besides the tenderizing, a brine is usually salt, sugar, and some flavors. Sometimes some acid. So especially with pork chops, I sometimes use some acid, which also seems to tenderize a little bit more, like a vinegar, or with chicken you can do a pickle brine, that type of thing. But you're basically trying through osmosis to get the flavors, the salt, the sugar, out of a solution into the meats. So salt and sugar are our main ingredients. So we have here about a cup of salt. It's a little bit short of a cup of salt. That is coarse salt, like a kosher coarse salt. If you're using a fine salt, use about half that amount, because as you can imagine, the coarse crystals kind of stand off of each other more, so the volume will be grater for a coarse salt than a fine salt, and you don't want to be too salty. So we have about half a cup of brown sugar, which gives it color and this beautiful flavor. Some dried rosemary. You can use any herbs you like. In this case, I have some peppercorns. I like the spiciness and the depth of flavor that peppercorns will give. A few allspice berries. I'm just going to pour a few into my hands. Another warm flavor. And 2 bay leaves. So it's really quite simple. 1, 2. And to this, I will add a quart of water. And we're going to bring this up to a boil to dissolve the salt and sugar. Oh, I'm going to add garlic as well because I love garlic. So I'm going to chop some garlic and add that as well. So let me do that right now. Yen is saying, Yen, you should come to the States for Thanksgiving. We'd love to have you. Come and try our turkey. All right, so 3 cloves of garlic are going into our brine as well. And those will get mellow from the heat and from sitting for over a day in that brine and just give a nice flavor to the whole bird. And that's it. That's the whole process. So there will be more water. Keep going. Yen says he would love to come, so maybe next year. Yeah, this isn't the best year to come to the States, or anywhere to travel at all. But we would love to have you. So, all right. So this brine mixture is heating up, and we have only 1 quart of water in there right now, so that you're not handling so much hot liquid, because it needs to cool before you put it on a bird. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is temperature and trying to stay within the safety range of poultry with a hot brine. So we're going to cool this. If you're in a rush, you could throw ice cubes in there. And then we're going to add another 5 quarts of water. So this 1 cup of salt and half a cup of sugar is the ratio for 5 quarts of water. Hi, Regina. Regina's asking what the berry mix that I put in was. So they were peppercorns and allspice that went into my brine to give it sort of that warm and slightly spicy flavor. Okay, so now what we're going to do is actually take the brine, add the other 5 quarts of water to a new turkey. So I'm going to go back over to my island. So what I have found for brining the turkey is that a tall pot like this one is the easiest because the turkey sort of fits almost exactly in here. If you have something larger, then you need more water. You might need to double your brine recipe, including the water, and keep the same ratio. But it's just harder to handle. And the other thing I am finding very useful are these brining bags. So these are, I think, 5-gallon bags. I've used this one twice and rewashed it and dried it out already, so I just don't love that much plastic waste, but they're extremely useful. So what I'm going to do is just stick this bag in the tall pot. You could use a bucket, you could use maybe a small cooler and try to fill up the space with other things in there to make it narrow for your turkey. And place the turkey right in here, and I'm going to pour the brine over it. So here's my turkey. It's in the sink right now. I kind of partially opened it just to make sure it's not too wet. All right, I'm going to do a big hoe. Ready? So the turkey goes straight in here. And I've been brining them with the neck and the gizzards and the liver and everything in there. And then I figure that it can't hurt to have more flavor in there. And then I take them out later. So we're going to look at that too. And then I have this brine, this one that's from earlier, that is cooled already. I'm going to pour it over. That's our salt. If the salt's not 100% dissolved, it's fine. You can brush it in there and it's going to dissolve in the rest of the liquid. Jennifer, thank you for joining us. Jen, we don't know each other, but saw my post on Facebook today about what are we going to do with all these turkeys, which we are going to donate on Thanksgiving. And and then asked about the show. So I'm happy to have you here, and thank you for the compliment. All right, I want to do, so our 1 quart of water is in there, and we're adding 5 more, so this will take a second. I might just, no, I want to show you the whole thing so I can show you how I tie it up. It's a little bit of a physical process. That's another reason to have this smaller pot. You don't have to wrestle it too much because you need to get the air out and get it really submerged in there. So that's 3 total quarts of water. We're doing 3 more. So I should talk about defrosting the turkey. I mean, this is an issue because this 12-pound turkey, technically, what is it? 24 hours for every 4 pounds is the rule of thumb. I lost count. I think that was 5. Maybe someone else knows. So this is 6. And you can use your, I need 1 more. 1 more to cover. So a 12-pound turkey would take 3 days to thaw in the refrigerator, which is a long time. So there are other ways. Hi Karen, I'm glad you're here today for this turkey extravaganza. We are doing a lot. We're talking about brine right now and defrosting. So this was a frozen turkey actually this morning. So I don't know who makes the rule at the Board of Health, but the rule is defrost your turkey in the refrigerator. I find that ridiculous to defrost for 3 days. It's very difficult to gauge, and you may end up still on Thanksgiving with a frozen turkey. So I'd like to have more control over it. So what I actually did with this one, which is now mostly defrosted, is I put the bag that it came in the store into this pot, filled it with cool water, and kept a thermometer in here to make sure that the cool water stayed under 50 degrees. So it's really like a refrigerator setting, but water will conduct the heat away more quickly than just being in the refrigerator in a bag. So it defrosted, I mean, it's soft. It's defrosted in about 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. So I can't guarantee that number, but 4 hours it defrosted, and then it will continue to defrost in this brine. As opposed to, I had one sitting on the counter just to see how it would be after like 4, 5, 6 hours. Still totally hard as a rock. So I think even if you brought home your turkey, left it on the counter for like 6, 7, 8, don't tell anyone I'm saying this, 8 hours, it's still frozen. So it's not going to grow bacteria or harbor anything if it's solid as a rock, but that might save you a day in the refrigerator as well. So otherwise, 3 days, you just have to be prepared in advance. So I have found that, let's see if I can show you a better view here. Yes. Here's our turkey, mostly submerged. And what I have found is that if you kind of gather this up as much as possible, even though it has this Ziploc top, that the liquid comes over the top a little bit better. So what you're trying to do is get the air out and the liquid submerging over the turkey. So I lost my rubber bands actually. Oh, here. My rubber bands. So I'm kind of ignoring the Ziploc top and just pressing down. And like I said, I tried this in a wider pan, and it was like a full body wrestling match to do this. So I'm pushing this down, getting the air out, and then I'm going to put a rubber band around the top of this. Alright, like I said, this adds a lot of moisture and a lot of flavor to your bird, so I find it to be worthwhile. And it's also going to cut out some, whoops, it's spilling over the top a little bit. That's too much pressing. It's going to save you some time with basting and flavoring later on as well. So this process would be done, so you're not doing this on Thanksgiving, you're doing this Wednesday morning. So you're defrosting and then you're doing this. And then I see some air still on top here. So what I've been doing is taking a small plate and trying to take up more room. There, see how it came up over the top? Take up some more room in this pot, and then I'm taking this can of cranberry sauce and putting it on top to just hold it down. now the whole thing is submerged for the most part. I could probably fuss with that a little bit more. But it's submerged and it's in this salt mixture that's going to give it flavor and help with the cooking. So now we're going to take one out of the brine. So we have our twin turkey over here, same exact thing. Plate, cranberry sauce. This is actually the insert for that pot. This is the spaghetti insert that you can strain your spaghetti, but it's the same size or almost the same size, so it worked just as well. And nothing's coming out because it's in the bag. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting any points here. We talked about defrosting, the water method. We're going to pull this out of the brine. Okay. So the next step, and now we're getting into, Teresa says, how long does it stay in the brine? Thank you for asking that, actually. So she's asking like 24 hours. My experience has, what I've read actually is 8 to 16 hours. And I think around the 16-hour mark, you want to get all that flavor. So I thought in general more is better. But around the 16-hour mark, I felt if it had gone longer, it would become maybe a little too salty. So 16-hour mark was good. If your salt content was lower than the ratio that it did, maybe it could stay even a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to dump this in the sink. So we have our, let me see this. So our turkey, it looks about the same actually. It has the herbs on it, the rosemary, the bay leaves, and I'm going to dump it out. You can't reuse this really, even though it's salt content. This one has been in for about 12 hours, probably. Oh no, it's not true. Yeah, 12 hours. Okay. And dump out. So the brine gets into the cavity of here. So our next goal is going to be to get this as dry as possible. So we want to get that out as well. So we'll turn it upside down. Pull the whole thing out. Upside down. Like this. I'm sorry I have my back to you. And over onto this cookie, what is it called? Drying rack. So I have a tray here. I'm going to take some of this rosemary off. I have a baking sheet with a drying rack or cooling rack on top of it. And some paper towels underneath. And now I'm going to wash my hands. I have paper towels underneath to absorb the liquid that comes off, and we're going to pat this dry. So, similar to the chicken, Regina's saying she has to go for dinner, but and that she'll watch later. So definitely watch later. There will be more information posted about how to do this, and the timing, and the ingredients, and all that. So, similar to the chicken that we did the very first week, 10 weeks ago, we want this as dry as possible now that all the liquid is in the breast and the meat, so that our skin will crisp and our flavors will concentrate. So you could leave this for an hour or more. I'm just going to sort of rush the process a little bit so that you can see what comes next. But similar also to our chicken, we want this closer to room temperature. It's pretty cold right now. And that's another way to get that blast of heat on the skin when you first put it in, and get everything sort of crisp and starting to brown. So this will sit while we make the butter mixture that's going under the skin. So it will dry for a few minutes like that. Now I'm going to wash my hands for real. There's a lot of you have to be careful also, like chicken, about cross-contamination. So when you dump out your things in the sink like that, afterwards give your sink a good scrub. And some people say to use bleach. I think you're not using bleach on your hands, so you probably don't need to use it on your sink, but give it a good wash. Okay, so our goal here is juicy turkey, flavorful turkey, making it simple, of course, and not having the breast dried out. So I'm turning off my oven from the other one that's coming on later. So what that means for us is that we want this moisture from the brine, and then we want to add some more fat. So, you know, we did duck last week, and it has all that nice fat on the skin. Turkey has a very thin skin with not a lot of fat, so it's part of why this breast gets so dried out. So, we have butter to the rescue, and what we're going to do is make a compound butter that we'll put under the skin and over the skin and everywhere to sort of baste the turkey on its own. So this is 1 stick of butter, just a few herbs and some garlic are going in there. So we'll chop those right now. I'm still getting good herbs from my garden. That's nice news. I don't know how much longer. We had a frost last night. But I have this sage, which we'll use for this, and we'll use it to decorate at the end. Some thyme, some leaf in there, and some rosemary all together. So a little handful of herbs like this, the thyme, a few sprigs. You know, we've done this before. We pull them right off the stem, like that, and some rosemary. Pull backwards against the stem like that, and we will chop. Actually, I take the sage out to chop it separately so that you can roll it like we've also done in the past. Mia says she's coming over for Thanksgiving. I think you should. That would be absolutely wonderful. We have way too much turkey, and we're doing the social distance thing, so there won't be many of us. But I should mention, actually, Teresa, I think you're still on the call, right? So we are donating these turkeys to families in town, or elderly people in town who need them. And Teresa, who's been on, I think, almost every week, has offered to donate a side dish to go with it. So I feel good about this, that people will have a nice meal. And hopefully these will brighten someone's day, because there are so many of them here. And we don't need so many. So, all right, back to our chopping. Here are herbs. This is going straight into the butter. This is softened butter. And I will put a couple cloves of garlic in there too. I love garlic on everything. I also like this sweet and savory idea. So we have the brown sugar in the brine. I just dipped my finger in the butter. Brown sugar in the brine, and then the savory herbs and the garlic. It just makes a nice combination. So someone once on one of these shows asked about the garlic press, which I usually just chop the garlic, but I like the garlic press for this because it's going to make nice small bits that will kind of incorporate easily into the butter. Teresa says it's nice that we're donating. It's just, yeah, it's a nice thing. I was thinking, what are we going to do with all this? And I'm sure, you know, some people, a lot of people can't go home this year, so it's tough. All right, so we're squeezing 2 cloves of garlic in there, and we're going to mash it up and then get down and dirty with the turkey. All right, so we have garlic, herbs, and butter. We don't need any more salt. There's all we need is in the brine. And it's going to come out into the drippings, it's going to come out into our gravy, so we don't need to add it to anything else. So like I said, 1 whole stick of butter, and this will also add a lot of nice flavor to our gravy later. And just mush it together. All right, compound butter. This is an easy thing to make, as you saw. So here's some sticks. Too many things on this counter. But all right, so we're back to our brine turkey. We'll give it 1 more pat dry. Yeah, it's pretty dry. The paper towels are collecting a lot of liquid. Oh, we have to take the insides out too, but we'll do that in a second. Actually, I'll do that now. So this is a bag of the liver, the heart, the gizzards, which I just throw in the roasting pan with the turkey. I like the flavor of it in the drippings. That's the heart. That's the gizzard. This is the liver. I usually end up just eating the liver. You could save these raw and make some sort of pate with them, the same as we talked about on the chicken week. Okay, and then we have a neck in here as well. So we're going to roast this with the turkey also, so that it's brown, and you could eat the meat off of it too, but it's going to go into any kind of turkey stock, which I'm sure you knew that was coming next if you've been watching, but a turkey stock that you'll make with all those bones in the future. All right, and now the butter. So what we need to do is get under this skin. So the skin's going to kind of hold the butter in place, and I'm going to loosen the skin like this, all the way back to the back of the breast, top of the breast actually. Like that on one side and then on the other side. Alright, get your hand in all the way in there. And now we're going to put butter all the way in there. So I promise this is worth it. And I'm using this whole thing, so I'm going to use my hands to take it like this and just place it for now, and then you can kind of use the skin to push it into place, because otherwise it's kind of slippery and hard to do. So under the skin first, and then use your hands to massage it in like this. So when we talk about like basting the bird, this, you really don't even have to with this. This butter is going to slowly baste this turkey as it cooks and make a crispy skin and make a delicious gravy. So mush it around on the other side like this, and then get it all over the breast. This wants to come loose, so we're going to pin it up like this so that this part of the breast here doesn't get dry. This can get very dry and kind of over browned, and we'll try not to let that happen. Okay. And then whatever butter you have still is going to go over the drumsticks and the legs. This is why it helps for it to be very dry, so it doesn't all slide around while you're doing this. We're going to tuck the wingtips under on both sides, same again as the chicken. We do that for every roasted chicken. Okay, and put some butter on there too. And this is really a job for, you know, your hands. There's no polite way to do this. You have to just get in there and cover it up. Basically, oh, I got it on my shirt. Whoops. As much butter as you can get on there. Especially like this area is kind of exposed, the meat is exposed, to get the butter on there as well. Almost done. In between the legs and the body. And my hands are a mess. Okay, so my hands are a mess, but we have a whole stick of butter and all those herbs and garlic on there now. And this turkey was already trussed, so what they did was they took the skin from, it's pretty clever actually, they took the skin from this side and pulled it over the two legs. If I undo it, I hope I can redo it. So see how this, can you see this? Let me do it here. This skin would have come from the store like this, and they put a hole here and put the two legs through. So instead of tying it the way we did with the chicken, they just did that. And then, so with the chicken, you're pulling this flap down and then put your string around and truss it to hold this. But this flap, I don't mind it. It's much bigger on the turkey, so I just let it hang down and get crisp. And then these legs are already now bound together, so they look very nice. So I'm not putting this in our roasting pan yet because the finished turkey is in the roasting pan. But I'm going to wash my hands, and you can imagine it's basically this. This is it. You're going to place these inside pieces underneath your roasting rack and the turkey on top, which you'll see now in the finished one. Jan says butter turkey. But yeah, anything with butter is of course more delicious. All right, let me wash my hands again. It's a lot of hand washing. And we're going to look at the finished turkey Make some gravy and carve it up. Okay. So, if anyone has questions, let me know. I'm not sure if I'm skipping over anything. All right. This is the moment of truth. Let me look at the notes, actually. We did the butter. We put the butter on. We talked about trussing. Oh, I also want to put some aromatics inside the book, so let's do that quickly. Just a few things. An onion, a lemon, and I have an apple here. Too much stuff. Here it is. And basically the same way we do when we make stock, I'm just going to cut everything in half and put it in whole. So onion in half, apple in half. Get the bird back over here. And this will give some more sweetness to our gravy. It will add some flavor, it will add moisture. So I'm basically just sticking all of this inside, just cut in half like that. Thank you, Yanni's saying it looks amazing. Can you get, I'm sure you can you get turkeys like this in Denmark? Is that a common thing to see? I have no idea. Okay, so all of that is in there, and let's just talk about stuffing for a second. I don't stuff the bird with stuffing, and one of the reasons is that it takes much longer to cook. And when we talked a little bit about that in-between temperature where food safety could become an issue, the stuffing makes it so dense that a lot of the bird is in that in-between temperature for a longer time. So there's a higher risk of foodborne bacteria, but it's also so much more difficult. So what I do is when we talk about the gravy, I save the fat from the gravy, and you could even use a little bit of the gravy to incorporate into your stuffing, because the bird's not really missing much without the stuffing, but the stuffing is missing a little bit without the bird. It doesn't get those drippings and flavors into it. So we want that, and the advantage of doing that separately in a pan then is that you can use that fat and use those drippings on there and also get a crispy top layer because it's just by itself in the oven. So we are going to talk about stuffing next week actually, but that's why here we are with a turkey that does not have stuffing in it. That's my thoughts on that. Okay, and now we look at the finished turkey. Let me make some room. Okay. I hope you're all ready. And here we are. So this is our finished turkey, still in the roasting pan. So this one will eventually go into this roasting pan, but first we're going to work with this. I have my thermometer still in here. It's been out for about 15 minutes or so. It's reading 166 degrees in the middle of the breast. So that's what you want, about 165 for the breast. And I found that the way to get to the deepest part of the breast is through this end and directly in this way. Because you can get different readings in different spaces, and you don't want it to be undercooked, because then the wing attachment will be undercooked, but you also don't want it to be dry. So I think we've hit the sweet spot. We also have an even browning, and I should tell you what I did. So this went in like this one with the butter and the aromatics inside, and it was a little bit warmer, so I left it out for about an hour to come down to a more like room temperature, and then hit it at 425 degrees for about 40 minutes. So what happens is you look and the turkey is totally not cooked, but the skin is starting to crackle and get brown a little bit, which is your road towards a crispier skin. So we have some crispiness going on here. And so once the 40-minute mark went by, I turned it down to 350, and it was in about 2.5, not even 3 hours. So by poundage, it should have been in for 3 hours, so it's 15 minutes. 15 minutes per pound, is that right? Yes, 15 minutes per pound. But the brining, this is what I've researched, is the brining itself shortens the cooking time a little bit. So I think, and this is my hypothesis, hypothesis about it is that, first of all, the liquid is a better conductor of the heat, the same way we talked about thawing the turkey in water. And the second thought I have is that the salt itself, like when you have pasta water and you put the salt in and suddenly it's bubbling, like it's boiling much more rapidly, I think the salt itself lowers the heat, lowers the boiling temperature of water and probably helps it to cook more evenly and more quickly. So this is not like wake up at 4 in the morning and start your turkey. This cooked in about under 3 hours to where we are now. So we need to remove this from, how's this for hot? It's still pretty hot. We're going to remove it from this roasting rack, let it rest a little bit more, and make our gravy, and come back and carve and pour the gravy on top and all those good things. So I need more room still. This was just a feat of how to organize the counter. All right, that's all going over there. I have a carving board over here. And if anyone's just joining us, I see some numbers going up. Let me know what questions you have. So I should talk a little bit about, one of my stove cameras might go out, but we'll work with that. The thermometers, they'll do that in a second. Let's get this out of here. Oh, I used 2 toothpicks to try to hold this skin over the breast. So we're going to pull those out. I haven't done that yet on the other one. And then I have these little mitts. You could use 2 sets of tongs. You just want to carefully, let me take the thermometer out, carefully get this out of the pan with something secure. So I find the most secure way is to use my hands. And give it a little tilt to get the juices out of the middle, because that could burn you and you don't need them. You're going to have enough juices running all over your board. So, okay. So here is our turkey on our cutting board. We have crispy skin here. Ooh, the breast feels not dry. And I'm happy with that. It looks beautiful. And we're going to go over to the stove and start our gravy. So we're going to take the rack out of here, put it in the sink. And we're making the gravy directly in this this roasting pan. So it pays to have a metal roasting pan that you can do that with. Let me find some tongs. And take out these parts as well. So a metal pan can go directly on your flame, whereas like a ceramic pan, you couldn't do that. So it makes the whole process a little bit easier. So all of this is going either into stock or a snack. I like all of that. Thank you. I'm getting compliments on the turkey. It does look and smell delicious, I have to say. That's exactly what we want. And I'm going to separate the fat. I'll do that over here as well. So I'm sure you remember the fat separator from some of the other videos. We're going to put the drippings in there so that the fat is removed from our gravy, but the flavor remains. So just pour this in here. And we're going to scrape like we've done before. Hi, Lynn. Thank you. It is delicious. Well, it looks delicious. And the test one I had yesterday was delicious, so I can vouch for that. Okay. Let's see. Can you see that pan? Yeah. We're going to use our trusty scraper and loosen all this goodness from the bottom. I don't want these blips of protein like in my gravy, but I want the flavor from them. So I'm going to strain them out after we Okay, so that's pretty good. We are pouring, if you can see this, in the fat separator, we have about half fat and half liquid. So it's fine if some fat, and we're actually going to add some butter too, but we don't want all of that fat. Plus, we're going to save it to put on our stuffing later. So, pours from the bottom to get the drippings back in here. And then I'm going to put about that same amount of chicken stock in here as well. If you had turkey stock, which we will now after we use all these bones, then you would use turkey stock. So that was about 2 cups of chicken stock in with our drippings. And I'm taking this over to the stove top. Okay, and this metal pan goes directly on my stove. I need my computer so I can see your comments. Okay, am I up close enough for you? But you can see already this looks kind of nice, right? All right, so let's get a flame under this. And like I said, because it's the metal pan, that's not a problem. And we're going to get our whisk and start whisking. So we made pan sauces for I think the 3rd video, and we used a slurry. So we're going to do the same thing to thicken this gravy. So I have 6 tablespoons of flour, and I'm going to add about the same amount of chicken stock to that to make a liquid. And the reason we do this, it's called a slurry, is so that you don't get clumps in your gravy. You want this flour already dissolved before you start adding it to gravy. So where am I here? There we go. So you don't get clumps and lumps. And this way we also have control over how much thickener we're putting in as we go. And this is really the whole process. So we have our drippings, we're heating them back up. And we have our thickener. I like to add a couple dashes of vermouth. You could actually use red or white vermouth. That's probably a tablespoon. I think it gives it a sweetness and a richness. That's kind of nice. And then as soon as this comes up, well, we can even do it now. Let's pour about 1/4 cup of this slurry in here. If you ever overdid it and it got too thick, you could just add more chicken stock. It's not the end of the world. But you don't want it, you ideally want to go slowly and try to get it to the right thickness as you go. So we have our pan, we have a slurry, here's some vermouth, and then let me get it on a higher flame. If it would reach on your stove, you could do this over 2 burners. And we want all those drippings and brown bits like we always do to flavor this. And what else? That's it. So we just have to wait for it to come to a boil. I'm wondering how many people who are watching are making their turkey this year. That would be interesting to know. And if this is anything like what you've done in the past or something totally different, it's pretty standard, really. We're trying to go for the basic recipe, but there's some tips and tricks that we could do. All right, this feels hot. It's not quite boiling yet. All right, give it a whisk. Just keep whisking. And I'm being impatient because I want it to boil. Let's see. Oh, I see some bubbles forming. So it won't thicken until it's boiling. So don't get too impatient like I'm being. You want to wait for that so that you don't over thicken it, before, if you jump the gun. Okay, we're going back to look. It's starting to simmer. I think it's not quite thick enough. I like my gravy to be like medium thickness. That was another 1/3 maybe of our slurry. Lynn said she's not making her own turkey, that she is going, well, she just said specifically, I'm a big baby and I'm going to my mom's house. I will say this, we have always gone to my parents' house, and my dad usually makes the turkey, my mom makes the sides, and we bring some sides. But of course this year is a very different story. So we're making the turkey and bringing part of it over to them, and we will do something online. So Lynn, you're not a big baby. I've always gone to my parents for Thanksgiving, although I always do Christmas. That's going to be another story for us on this show. John says he's cooking for 6. A turkey is too much work. Trader Joe's cooked turkey breast. That sounds good. Well, Trader Joe's, everything there, of course, is great. I just lost my stove camera. I don't know what's sometimes with the technology. Let me see if I can just aim this down here for you. Yep, that worked. That was the best thing that's ever happened on here. All right, you can see this is starting to thicken up. Let's do a little bit more. We're going to be talking about holidays soon, so I usually do a standing rib roast. I was thinking of doing short ribs this year. There's a lot to discuss in the upcoming months. All right, this looks like a nice amount of thickness to me. If you can see that, it's kind of coming together. It's not watery, but it's not too thick. So this to me would be the time to add some butter. And we did this in our pan sauce video. And add the butter at the end so that it gives it that emulsified kind of glossy quality, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm turning the heat down a little bit though. Exact same thing we did in the pan sauce video. And just whisking in, that was about 2 tablespoons of butter. This makes a lot of gravy. This is more than enough for your whole turkey. And if you wanted it to be a little more, add some more chicken stock. You can't really go wrong with quantities here. You just keep going until it's the right thickness. All right, we're almost done with this scraping. And if you can see, when I move the whisk through it, I don't know if you can see that, it leaves sort of a tiny bit of a trail, enough to know that it's slightly thickened. Okay. So that is done. I'm turning it off and I'm coming back to the island to strain this. So give me 1 second to move over. So we are almost done. We have our gravy. I want to strain this to get out the little protein bits. You know how much I love all the brown bits and everything, but we want it to be a smooth gravy, or at least I prefer that. So we're going to strain into this bowl. That's not too hot. And just get this all out of here and push it through the strainer. Oh my god, it looks so silky and delicious and nice. It really does. Get my spatula. Where are we? There. Get everything out of the pan. And then all we have left to do is carve and serve. So we'll probably carve half the turkey. You'll get the point after that. So like we do when we're straining a puree or a soup, we want to push this through a fine mesh strainer like this and get the liquid but not the solids out of there. Yeah, there's like some skin left behind. Some bits of protein. You can see that's not what you want. You want smooth gravy. Okay, I think we have achieved that. Alright, that's going to go to the side, and it will go into my gravy bowl in a minute. This fat I am saving for the stuffing. So if you're doing it all on the same day, you can just pour it right over the stuffing at the last minute, pop it back in the oven, you'll have that in the turkey baked flavor. Alright, I have a platter here. I'm going to put that there, and I think we're good on temperature. It's a little bit hot. So same way I do with the chicken, I tend to go at it with my hands. So we'll do you would bring it on the platter. That's not going to help you if I just do that. So generally you would present it on this platter with the garnish around. And then I think the best way is to take it back into the kitchen and cut it all apart. Because otherwise you're trying to be dainty in front of your guests, and it's really almost impossible to be dainty while you do this. So we have a sharp knife, and similar to the chicken, I keep saying that, but it is similar. I'm going to cut the breasts on either side of the breastbone and remove them whole. This is a little hot, but let's go. And it's been resting about half an hour actually. end part did get a little bit dry like we predicted, but the rest does not seem to be. Okay. All right, you want to remove this in one piece. So any juices that come off, you should always have the board with the channel on it. There we go. With the channel on it around the edge to collect those juices. And anything that comes off should go right back into your gravy. So you marry those flavors. So I like to do a whole breast like this, and then with a sharp knife, cut it into medallions with the skin on it. Like that, so everybody gets a piece like that. And I find it to be more tender that way. I think you're cutting against the grain the way you would do with a steak, as opposed to cutting the way you see like in movies where they cut the breast across. This way you're really cutting with the grain in that case. Okay, we're moving this whole breast onto our platter. I don't actually have much of a plan how I'm doing this. I think I'll put the other half of the turkey on and the part that we carve sort of next to it, so you can just see how to do this. Okay, anyone has questions, let me know. And let's see here. We're going to separate the trussed legs like this, and then cut under the drum. Oh, that came off so nicely. This is like falling off the bone, tender. So this drumstick is just going on a platter like that. And then the wing, sort of the same thing. You can just pull this part right off like that and place that. I like dark meat personally, so you'll find chunks of meat like that as well that you'll want. And then the thigh, which is my favorite. I hope it's not too hot for me to do. You kind of just pull it, but it might need to be a little bit cooler. Oh, it's hot. You want to cut between the joint and crack it. There we go. So there's a joint right here. I've sort of wiggled it open, and then cutting down in between to separate the thigh. And burning my fingers. Oh. Okay. There we go, like this. All right, and that still has the skin attached, like that. So we have half of it basically carved. So you know I would do what I do for a chicken, which is take your hands and just kind of continue to remove these pieces that you can't always get all of it with a knife. And then do the other side the exact same way. When you eventually flip it over, you can take all this skin off and save it for your stock. So that will have fat and flavor for your stock. And then you can see there's all this meat under here as well. So this area, I'm going to try to do it with tongs. This is what's called the oyster in your chicken. Oh yeah, it came off in one piece. That's like the prize piece of the chicken for the chef. It's nice, flavorful, dark meat. Oh, that one did not come off in one piece. And you just keep going. So this part you need hands to do. The breast and the legs you can get off with a knife the way we did. And as you can see, we have about half of the turkey carved on the board. Let me see if I can just place this half, especially because we're giving this other half away. We want to leave it whole so it can be tender still. I think we're going to vacuum seal it. Something along these lines. And then I have some garnish to put on that platter. So if you want to do a presentation, I have some kale that I'll place around here. Oh, it already looks nice. Okay. We can just do kale. I have an orange here that I'll make a few wedges of, not wedges, slices. place those on our platter as well. And everybody can just help themselves. So let's move this out of the way. And give you a look at this. I need to just wipe my hands 1 second. Okay, so let's look at this platter. We have, again, we've done half of it, so half of it is sort of still this part of the wing, which I find difficult to get out of there, actually. I just did it. So I pulled the bone out, and then you would cut this meat off with your knife. But we have half of the turkey whole still, half of it carved. Here's wing, breast, thigh, drumstick, and some garnish. And I'm just going to put my gravy into the gravy boat. So you can see that. And we have that as well. Let's move all this out of the way so we can enjoy. Okay. So, I think we did it. I hope that was not like crazy town. We did everything. We made our brine. We did something that would be what you do the day before Thanksgiving. We talked about defrosting. We made our compound butter to put under the skin and dry the turkey and get it ready after it's been in the brine. We talked about roasting, which we didn't get to see. I will say one thing. I don't baste the turkey. You can baste the turkey a little bit. The point of basting is to get the fat onto it and keep it moist as you're going. The butter sort of does that for you. Thank you, Teresa. She's saying it looks amazing. It smells amazing. It's tender. I hope it tastes amazing. I should taste it, actually. But what I do instead of basting is take some cold chicken stock about every half an hour and pour it over the top once you've already sort of started to get that browning. And what that does is it moistens it, and it also cools off the breast slightly so that the breast isn't overcooked while the thigh is still cooking. It's just my theory about that. So you can also, I mean, basting is just a little bit harder. You have to get into the bottom of the hot pan and get the fat and pour it over. So we've sort of pre-done that with butter. And one other item I just was thinking is if you buy a turkey that is kosher or self-basting, or there are a couple other terms for it, or it says, 8% salt solution or something like that, those turkeys you should not brine. So if you have one like that, you skip the whole brining section of this video because it will already have a high salt content, so you don't want to add more salt to that. Basically, it's already been done for you. I guess the only downside being that you're not adding the garlic and the peppercorns and all of that, but that's one easier step. So let me taste this. It's very good. It's flavorful. It's tender. I think with our stuffing and our gravy, it's going to be really good together. So thank you. If you have questions, let me know during the week, and I'm going to post sort of the timeline by day of what we've done and how to do this in your own kitchen. So it's not Thanksgiving yet, but have a happy week, and next week we'll talk about stuffing, and if you have requests for one other side, let me know about what we can do to go with the stuffing. And I look forward to seeing you here again next week. And if you would be so kind as to look at the Cocoa Puff YouTube channel and subscribe, I would be so happy. We only have 13 subscribers so far, but we're working our way towards it. It's brand new. So again, thank you so much for being here, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.